Like if you have $1 million and you spend 10,000 a year out of the portfolio, that's fine, right?
Yes.
But then you got 5 million and you spend 400,000 out of it, you might have a problem.
100%.
Right?
Welcome to Fearless Money Talks. Brian, who are we talking to today?
Oh, we have a special guest today. So we have JC Abusaid with us. He is our CEO and President of Halbert Hargrove. And I think he's been our boss for close to 18, 19 years now.
A very long time.
So what are we going to talk about today?
I want to talk about LifePhase Investing.
LifePhase Investing. So that's a term we all know, but what is it?
It's a differentiator for the firm. So it talks about why the industry uses risk tolerance and your age to determine asset allocation. And we go about it slightly different.
Okay, let's break down some of those words, JC.
Yeah, there's some big
risk
words in there.
tolerance, asset allocation. Like, tell us more. What do those mean?
Okay, so traditionally, we look at somebody's age. And in general, if you're younger, you need a more aggressive allocation. If you're older, you're supposed to be more conservative. And then we make you take a risk tolerance survey to determine if you're risk adverse or you're a risk taker. And in essence, it becomes kind of an approximate approach.
With the traditional risk tolerance questionnaires that people all take, and obviously all firms use them, do we ever notice that people's risk tolerance changes at the wrong time?
It does.
It does.
It does, yes. It does with market cycles, especially if things are a little bit volatile. That's the wrong time to take a measure of that, because usually it spikes and then it distorts really the picture and what you should be doing then.
Or what I end up seeing a lot of the time is when things are going really well, everybody gets really
of
bullish.
Course. Yeah.
Why aren't you taking more risk?
More growth.
I can take it all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with LifePhase investing, that was a term that we came up with, correct? Okay, so with it, why don't we break down the components of like the phases? What are the phases of a LifePhase portfolio?
Sure. So we have build and grow. That's the traditional, like early days. You're accumulating and you're saving and putting money to work. You have the transition, which is somebody's now accumulated some wealth. They're looking at what's next. Are they going to retire? Are they going to keep working? And then finally, distribute and deploy, which is kind of now you're drawing a little bit on the portfolio or drawing a lot. Cash flow matters more than anything.
So let's take a step into build and grow, because we said earlier age doesn't matter. So with build and grow, how long could somebody be in a build and grow portfolio for?
It depends. It depends on each client. Yeah.
So with build and grow, when you say aggressive, what is, for people listening, what does aggressive mean in an asset allocation?
Sure. So it's more equity exposure, meaning the client can withstand more volatility and it won't impact, right? Because they're saving for the long term and they can afford to go through the ups and downs because they're constantly saving and reinvesting at wherever the market is.
So kind of like if they're adding money at lows, they're buying things on sale type of thing.
You got it.
Okay.
I want to interject a little here, because you guys never defined asset allocation, and I don't think that everyone would know what that is.
Don't put this on me. It's on him.
So I think we need to break that down a little bit more. So, obviously you're talking about making it more conservative, more aggressive, but what does that mean exactly? What is an asset allocation?
Yeah, so I'll give it a stab. I think Brian can complement whatever I say. That's his forte. But it's the idea. You build a portfolio. Traditionally, you build it with stocks and bonds. I'm doing the high overview. If it's more aggressive, you have more stocks than bonds. If it's more conservative, you have more bonds than stocks. And if you're about balance, traditionally the industry uses the term 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. But obviously, it's a little more nuanced than that. I don't know if we want to go, how deep we want to go here, but does that?
Yeah, that helps. I think that helps for everyone that maybe isn't as familiar with our lingo. So, Brian, anything you would add to that?
It's usually a pretty little pie chart that you see in a presentation. That's typically what I tell people for asset allocation.
And it's unique for each individual, right? Depending on what their goals are, because everyone's different. We've talked about a lot in this podcast, like each situation is very different, right? Am I following that correctly?
That's right. So we talked about, he mentioned build and grow, that phase of life where you have typically large amounts of human capital, which the other way to put that is you have many years to earn income. Okay. A lot of years to earn income, your human capital is long. With build and grow, for example, you might have somebody that just gets their first job, has the ability to start saving money. Mm-hmm. They don't really have much of a portfolio at that point, right? They're starting out with zero. And then you might have people who they're, let's just call it now starting to enter mid-career, and they've accumulated money, but they still need to be aggressive because they're going to go another 20, 25 years potentially with their goals, what they want to do. Their build and grow portfolio might be more conservative in the sense call it more alternatives or a little bit of fixed income in it, so that they have more dollars at risk now, and their timeline isn't the same as that person who's just starting. So you have to tweak within the phases somewhat, because everybody's going to be at a different starting point and a different dollar amount for the most part.
Okay. And so obviously we're talking about the investment side of build and grow. Like, what are some of the other things that you're factoring in at that build and grow phase? Like, obviously we don't just invest people's money. What else are we looking at?
Yes. So right, you could think that LifePhase Investing, it's about investing, but you're right. It goes into what the industry calls wealth management. We call it wealth advisory. So the idea is that it goes way further than that. It starts with the premise that you want to always be measuring what assets you have today, what assets you're going to have tomorrow. So I can start with maybe an example, and we can kind of dive into what we've focused in terms of wealth advisory on the example I'm going to use. So I'm going to use two 35-year-old gentlemen. You have one of them, let's call him a firefighter. He happens to have $5 million in the bank, inherited. I don't know how it came about, but they have that capital. The other one's a Silicon Valley executive making a ton of money. And by definition, what's going to happen is the firefighter has potentially less money coming to him in the future, meaning it's unlikely they'll be able to accumulate the $5 million. The Silicon Valley person is likely to accumulate a good amount of money. You would think a 35-year-old, going back to traditionally how we were thinking of how do you invest, that both would be, hey, build and grow. They're both young. They're going to, but see, it's different. So for the firefighter, we're going to focus on first different portfolio, and I know we're moving on beyond that, but the idea is that we're going to protect that $5 million. So see that the age didn't matter. We've moved them into a different life phase where he's in distribute and deploy. So see how the difference is? But now talking specifically about what is it that we would focus on. And then regardless of where they are too, the idea is if you're accumulating and building wealth, we want to protect the human capital. So obviously for the firefighter, we're less focused, for example, on life insurance, long-term disability. Not to say we wouldn't pay attention to that, but think about how important it would be for the 35-year-old that is a Silicon Valley, let's say he has a young family. We want to protect that carefully. We want to focus on life insurance. We want to focus on long-term disability. That's kind of the core focus, number one. So that's how our wealth advisory services are dynamically adjusted to the circumstances of each client. And again, you can see how drastically different. Two 35-year-olds will focus on completely different things, not only on the investment side, but specifically to your question on the wealth advisory side.
You talked about possibly exploring insurance. How do we approach insurance with people? Like what is our path for? A lot of the time people hear insurance and they go, oh my God, somebody's going to sell me something. What's the approach?
The approach, very good. Yeah, so we like to be the quarterback. Mm-hmm. So we like to be there for clients and we like to guide them. So Halbert Hargrove does not provide the insurance. We have preferred providers, people that we vetted, people that we work with for years, and then we make the introductions. But we're in the driver's seat. We're identifying the insurance need, and we're pretty much
what you should buy versus what you should get sold.
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't want to have a client exposed to getting sold a product that they don't need. So we'll be there. We'll be there every step of the way, supporting and helping with the implementation of whatever we said should be implemented.
Well, speaking of working with advisors, that's something that we don't do. There's other advisors that we're working with on some of the other wealth advisory services. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe one of those build and grow that is looking for some of the other things that we would recommend that all clients have? So,
for example, one of the important components, or one of the important things that young families need to put together is a estate plan. And an estate plan is intimidating. You get in front of a estate plan attorney on your own, and the whole thing gets overwhelming. There's attorney type lingo that is hard to understand.
You're also talking about death, which people are scared of.
Correct, and they don't want to. And they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, death and taxes.
So that's where the value of the advisor comes from. That's not unique to Halbert Hargrove, but it's the idea that we're identifying a need, and then we're going to be there every step of the way. We're going to make sure that it gets done. So it's not just, hey, you should work on this. It becomes part of our roadmap, and we keep touching on it and making sure they get it done.
Well, I think one of the important roles that our advisors play too is holding people accountable, making sure they actually follow through, do what we ask them to do. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of what the advisors do in that case?
We work in teams. So the idea is that there's more people than just the advisor helping with management of their relationship. So we do create a roadmap for each client, and the idea is that as we take the client through the Halbert Hargrove service journey, we're identifying the needs, and then we're constantly following up and make sure that things get done. So that's just part of the beauty of you build a team. You're not fully dependent on a single person. We're very process oriented, so we're making sure that we're setting up meetings, we're following up, that after a meeting we know what was discussed, what were the commitments that both sides made. So not only the clients made commitments, we've made commitments, and again, we have a whole system that just keeps the ongoing agenda on track and making sure the right things are approached.
So I have the hard questions for you. All right. So you're the CEO. So supposedly you're supposed to be managing people, right? Within this industry, we see this constantly. People talk about doing wealth management or wealth advisory, and everybody says the same words, like, we help you with this, we help you with that in the sales process. You as the head of the firm, how do you make sure that actually gets delivered broadly across all the multiple offices, all the advisors, and all the teams here?
Okay, that's a great question, Brian. So one,
he cracks the whip.
No. I'll highlight our culture. Our culture has been one that we've always been service oriented. So I would say that's a forte for the firm, but that's not enough. We do have a wealth advisory committee that's separate from the investment committee. There's a passion for execution there. You both know we're centralized. The firm has identified the need to be centralized, meaning we don't want different advisors having different priorities and doing things differently. Of course, we identify every advisor is different. That's what makes the firm so great. But the idea is that we're constantly paying attention to that. Paying attention, we have a bunch of metrics that we're monitoring, and we're seeing how many estate plans have we done, how many insurance reviews.
How often do you look at that stuff?
Oh,
see, now I'm like grilling you like this is like
you're I was like, I can answer that for him.
He's interviewing for his job here.
Yeah, no. It's done at least monthly. But the beauty of building a firm the way we've built it is, I'm monitoring, but I'm not just the only one. It's not my passion project. It's everybody's passion project. We know we have to execute on that. We do what we say. we walk the talk, and it's not a joke. It's not just a cute saying. If we don't do it, we really care about it. I want to highlight CFEX. We've chosen.
Well, we have to define what CFEX is.
I know. I'm gonna
CFEX.
Yeah. Center
for Fiduciary Excellence.
Is that what it is? Uh-huh. Okay. So the idea is that on a voluntary basis, we submit ourselves to an audit. And the idea is the audit verifies and evaluates whether or not we're conforming to the highest fiduciary standards. So they come in and they check. If we're saying we provide these services to clients, they go into the client files and make sure we're doing that. If we told a client we're going to meet with you 4 times a year, they go and look at the client file and see if we did meet. For example, they go check on your investment committee and they go like, okay, what's your due diligence process? Let's see, you have a new manager. Did you really follow it? So at the end of the day, there's check and balances like everything else, but I think we're unusual in that we submit ourselves to this, and we've done it. I think it's now 11th or 12th year doing it. It's the years are passing by very quickly, but that's finally the last check mark that we put on it to make sure we are walking the talk.
I want to get back to the conversation of LifePhase. So we talked a lot about build and grow. Like, let's talk about kind of those other elements, the transition period and the build and grow. Maybe talk a little bit more about what's different in the transition period versus build and grow.
Sure. So transition, right? So now we're talking somebody has accumulated a certain amount of wealth. They're probably looking at the end of the current career and they're thinking, okay, what's next? So the idea is that we bring into account a check. It's kind of like you need to, it's like a checkup. It's a very careful checkup because the riskiest thing that can happen is that it's what the industry calls, oh geez, here we go, kind of worms. So I'm going to talk about the sequence of returns and stuff like that. Meaning the idea that you work so hard to get there and now you're about to transition to relying on the portfolio to pay for bills or to supplement your income. Well, if something happens, if it's a bad market year, what have you, so then we're focusing on different things. On the investment side, we want to be hedged. We want to be more careful about, okay, let's reduce the equity exposure. But again, you're taking into account how much they have, how much they need, what's discretionary spending, what's not discretionary. And so that's everything that comes into play, Kelly, and it's probably the most critical phase, if you would, that we have to deal with.
He talked about something earlier, the example of firefighter with $5 million, right? So when people hear the term how much you have, that number doesn't really matter. It matters relative to what your future needs are out of that. So it's almost like there's this, like if you have $1 million and you spend $10,000 a year out of the portfolio, that's fine, right?
Yes.
But then you got $5 million and you spend $400,000 out of it, you might have a problem.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
Even though you're hitting transition, you might be hitting it with a little bit different objective than the person that says, I have $1 million, I'm only going to take 10 a year, and I'm happy with doing that. So
100%. I was thinking, this is a passion project for me, and understanding and how this is something that I think truly helps clients. I was thinking of another example. Okay. So let's say we have somebody in transition or about ready to retire. You have 2 couples. Mm-hmm. And again, to highlight the differences you just pointed out, you have maybe one couple that is focused on leisure travel. Maybe the husband likes to do golf destination stuff. So they don't have a lot of family. The focus is not the family. That's not a need. Then you have another couple that is completely focused on their legacy and the family. So they want to make sure they're maybe in Southern California where housing is as expensive as we have it. So they're going like, we need to make sure our children have homes and we want to fund college education. So to illustrate your point, right? Yeah. You have completely different needs. One is doesn't have a lot of discretion. They've made a commitment to the family. This is what they want to accomplish. Well, the other couple can take a lot more risk. And if things don't work out, it's okay. They can change their lifestyle and adjust. It's, again, discretionary versus not discretionary. And So it's a dynamic process.
Maybe talk a little bit more about what you consider discretionary versus non-discretionary. Is it per individual? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it, right? You can adjust. The idea, right, it's to look at each family or each client and identify that. It's about what's important to them. It's not what we consider, again, within limits, what we consider discretionary or not. We can start with the basics. You have a mortgage payment. Well, that's not discretionary. If you don't make that payment, you're going to lose the home. So that's a clear difference,
you have to
right?
pay your taxes and you have to pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
Okay, you got
Probably
it.
pay for health insurance, until
Exactly.
Medicare. So those are the givens, I guess.
The givens. But in a family discussion, it could be, well, how important is funding the college education? Okay, maybe the homes in the example I use. Okay, that has to be first, and that's non-discretionary. That has to happen no matter what. And then that's where it's so important to be an advisor, to have those family meetings where you identify the goals and where they stack up. And that's the beauty of the process we follow is we do that. We go through that exercise and stack up the different priorities, and then that's how we manage the idea of discretion, non-discretionary.
So I can tell you're really passionate about LifePhase investing. Tell us why.
Yeah, Kelly, it's personal to me. My grandparents, it starts with them. So both grandfather and grandmother were somewhat well off. My grandfather was a stock picker. He was really good, and they were doing really well. He passed away in '84. I feel that up until that point, he was a little tight, so there wasn't a lot of thought into the family and the legacy. He was just accumulating and building wealth. He passes away. My grandmother decides with an advisor to take over. So unfortunately, 3 years had passed on, and Black Monday comes in 1987. She panicked, was not really working with the advisor as well, sold everything. She lost a third. So she went from being really well off, having a lot of discretion over investing, to, okay, now I can barely make ends meet. But she did it right. She changed the way she was thinking. She thought about making gifts during her lifetime, helping my mom and helping her buy properties and really diversifying what she was doing and actually living life better. It was about making gifts, making investments, just changing how the traditional family dynamics were. And I thought that was just amazing that she was able to achieve that. But I feel that if we can do that for clients and start it earlier, and it'll be a better story. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. I saw how it changed my grandmother, how it aged her, and literally just about that stress time killed her. And yet she was able at the end to have tremendous joy in seeing how distributing her wealth during her lifetime made a world of a difference. So that's where this all comes from.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing story and amazing grandmother. It's crazy to make that kind of a big transition, like totally changing the way you think about money and the way you're investing. So I know that's hard to do. So that's amazing.
Absolutely. Her legacy lives on.
I think that was a great story. Thank you for sharing it. I know it emotionally impacts you, but we had a wonderful time having you on today. We're close to closing here. If people have questions and want to follow up with their own, call it story with you, is there a way they can get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Of course, there's a website, and you can find some of the LifePhase investing concepts there, and of course, LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's a great way to get in contact with me or find out more about the firm.
Okay. And if you enjoyed the podcast today and you want future updates on the firm, please like and subscribe.
Absolutely. There'll be more about LifePhase investing coming to a theater close
near
to
you.
Absolutely.
And if you're looking for, it's JC Abusaid on LinkedIn, and our website is halberthargrove.com.